Trans fat, the word that makes a lot of people shudder. Whether or not avoiding them is the decision made when purchasing food, it's apparent from most product advertisement of fat-free diets, cholesterol-free, or zero trans fat, that there's something going on with fats in human health that consumers need to be aware of. Because of all of the results from research given linking trans fat to cardiovascular disease, which is from a buildup of fat in blood vessels making the heart pump harder and causing heart attacks and other problems, shoppers buy their trans fat-free food with no more information than trans fat is bad because it causes heart problems. But what are they? This is you. No, not you. You. Way deep inside. Beyond the skin and the insides, down to the depths of the blood vessels, all the way down to the cell membrane of the red blood cells. There you are, a little lipid. A tiny structure that contains a little head that likes water and limbs that repel it. Mirroring under you and around you are more lipid neighbors that create a membrane layer with water-loving heads and water-fearing limbs that keep liquids in the cell and other liquids out. If a red blood cell was a soccer field, you might be one tiny blade of grass. A lipid, which is just a structure that simply doesn't dissolve in water, is what we commonly refer to as fat. But what is commonly thought of as fat are not the only lipids. Rose Martin, a senior lecturer in the Food Science and Human Nutrition Department at Iowa State University, says that lipids are also a part of hormones, steroids, cell membranes like you, and oils. They're all structures that play important roles in normal body development and function, such as absorbing vitamins. Some of those structures also include unsaturated fats, saturated fats, and big, bad trans fats. But not all of these fats here are equal. Trans fats that end up in our diet differ because of a process called hydrogenation. Now that's kind of a big word for a little lipid. However, Rose Martin explains that hydrogenation is just the process of adding more hydrogen to a compound in a processor that requires a sealed metal high-pressure vat. With unsaturated fats, what hydrogenation does is breaks the double bonds, or the kinks in your limbs, that hold the compound together, makes more room for hydrogen, adds them, and straightens the limb out straight as a stick, turning them into saturated fats. Saturated straight-chain lipids without the double bonds or kinks in your limb pack together flat with their neighbors and are solid at room temperature. Double-bonded kink limbs can't lay flat, so they are liquid at room temperature. This is the difference between oil, like olive oil, and butter. If the hydrogenation process is completed, you will have saturated limbs, but usually what happens is partial hydrogenation. When this happens, trans fats have been formed. There is no longer a kink, but there is still a double bond on the limbs. This gives the oil products greater stability, longer shelf life, and lower monetary cost, but all at the risk of human health. All those small differences add up with how the human body uses those lipids when making hormones, steroids, oils, and membranes like you. When it comes to red blood cell membranes, if the diet consists of trans fat when the body reuses the lipids after consumption, there will be a direct impact on how those cell membranes are constructed in the body. The more trans and saturated fats, the less flexible your red blood cell membranes will be, and the more sticky they will be too, causing improper nutrient transport and blood clotting. Trans fats are worse than saturated fats because though they physically act like saturated fats because of their straight limbs causing them to be solid at room temperature, they don't work in the body the same. According to the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, trans fats raise your bad cholesterol, which limits your body's ability to use and dispose of fat. It also decreases your good cholesterol that is used to take lipids to the liver to be processed. Cholesterol is a structure in your membrane that kind of acts like a gatekeeper for liquids. Having low good cholesterol and high bad cholesterol is going to make your blood vessels rigid, not flexible, and cause plaque to build up. Saturated fat doesn't have those exact same effects on bad cholesterol, so they are viewed a little higher, but still should be avoided according to both the FDA and Rose Martin. In a study from 2011 relating dietary fat to cardiovascular disease by Dr. Lee Hooper, stated that reducing saturated fats in the diet reduced risk of cardiovascular disease by 14% in 6 months. Since 2006, the FDA requires all labeling to include trans fat contents. The number shown gives a guarantee, but the zero might mean anything less than 0.5 grams, which is okay to say under the requirement standards. While banning all foods with trans fat, which California and New York have done for processed products, would also mean banning foods with small natural trans fats. Eliminating some of our main nutrient resources, requiring labeling, is an important step to helping people choose the right foods to eat. Rose Martin suggests to use less saturated and no trans fat in the diet, but this can be really hard to do. When comparing butter to margarine, a vital component to cooking and baking, butter may have more saturated fat than margarine, but the trans fat in margarine is almost 10 times the amount than in butter. Rose Martin states that if in 2, 3, or 10 years she were to take a look at the cell membrane of your red blood cells, she could tell what has been in your diet. The effect of eating trans and saturated fats can be long-lasting and impacting. Martin suggests to always read the label. The Center for Disease Control, or the CDC, suggests to keep bad cholesterol lower and to be healthy, have a blood test every 5 years, eat healthy, maintain a healthy weight, exercise regularly, don't smoke, which damages blood vessels more, and treat high cholesterol. Both Rose Martin and the FDA suggest to eat healthier, cook with liquid oils that contain unsaturated fats like olive oil, instead of solids like shortening lard or butter. Some of those unsaturated fats in the oil are going to be vital to the proper function of the body. Understanding what the label means and what trans fat does to your body will help develop a more conscious public about how eating processed and partially hydrogenated oils will make, even with a small amount, such a large impact, even for just a tiny little lipid.